Coming up, Apple and Samsung launch things.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hey, Shaun Priest, how are you today?
It's the attention to detail that I love about this show. They launch things. Welcome to the show. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just kind of getting over my sandwich that I've just had. I had a very nice chicken and coleslaw sandwich. It was beautiful.
I've never heard that combination ever. It sounds disgusting. And what do you mean you're getting over it? How big was it?
It wasn't that big. It was nice. It was almost. I would almost use the word nutritious. And that'll become a useful word later in today's program. I am absolutely not. Listen, we have got big breaking news today.
Breaking news.
We do. Very excited to say that Apple have announced new features in the category of accessibility ahead of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and we have the notes. Copious notes.
Yes, for once we have copious notes. They don't make a lot of sense, but, they're there.
That's right. And even Apple Intelligence itself managed to work out these notes and summarize them for me, which was absolutely wonderful. We did get the note yesterday, and finally we can reveal the news. I'm so pleased to say today we can share the story about what is coming to iOS 19 later this year, and macOS and other platforms as well. One particular platform that might surprise you a little bit. We're going to get into all this today, so we'll break it down. But also coming up, we're going to have an extended conversation with John Dyer and Carrie Morales. Now, Carrie, of course, you'll know from the Carrie on Accessibility YouTube show and podcast, and John Dyer from the Blind Android Users podcast. They're both here to talk about really the question of, whether it's time to switch to Android, whether it's a good time to switch to Android. I've been having this thought for a while about the cost of iPhones going up. Is it perhaps the moment where a lot of blind people might be saying, you know what, if I was ever going to make the move to Android, this might be the moment. And of course, this all comes with big news from Samsung yesterday as well. So plenty to get through between now and the end of the show. Let's just dive right in. Yeah, no, let's dive right in. So, my sandwich was nutritious, but you know what? Apps can be nutritious as well. Yes, in iOS 19, and I guess across other app stores across the Mac and Apple ecosystems, we're going to be getting these new accessibility nutrition labels. Now, I must admit, when I heard this title at first, I thought, what on earth is this all about?
It's a horrible name for it.
It's a bit weird, I'll be honest.
Let's just call it accessibility labels and move on.
And actually, this is something we've been kind of wanting for a while, I think. We've kind of talked about this.
I think.
Well, no, we have. We've kind of talked around this idea for a while that, wouldn't it be great if apps could highlight what accessibility is in the app so we know in advance? Like, if we could know an app was built with VoiceOver and considered with VoiceOver in mind, then it would help our decisions, especially when it comes to paid apps, right? Free app, that's one thing. But a paid app, am I really going to spend $20, $30 on an app when it turns out that it may not be accessible and I don't know until I make the purchase? Yeah, of course I can always, get a refund, but rather than go through the hassle.
Thing to do.
It's not, no.
Get a refund. I mean, it's accessible, it's straightforward, but it's still a few steps that you shouldn't have to take. Yeah, exactly right. You don't want to take that gamble, and this should. I'm really interested to know how they're going to say, yes, this is VoiceOver supported or compatible. I mean, what's the steps that a developer needs to take to achieve that check mark, right? But for us, when we're browsing through the App Store, and as you said, not just on the iPhone, on Mac as well, it's going to tell you, the accessibility features that are supported, including VoiceOver, voice control, and also if it supports, font enlargement, larger text, and things like that, the other accommodations. So, yeah, really exciting, I think.
Yeah, they show off in an image that they have put out here with this of the CVS app, which is the pharmacy app in the US, and it shows how it supports various categories, and it's labeled right in there in the App Store. This will be available worldwide, and developers can access guidance on the criteria apps should meet before displaying accessibility information on their product pages. That's interesting. Of course, is that going to be policed? That's been the thing I think we've wanted most out of Apple here. Are you going to police this? Now, it doesn't sound like they're going to do that, but they are going to encourage developers to say, look, make sure that you reference the accessibility that is in the app via the App Store. Now, they already have this in a way because they do this on the Apple TV app. So when you go in and you look for a movie, there is a section which tells you whether it has audio description, whether it has captioning. It will tell you that, and it's in a little section inside the app. So you can go and do that already for TV shows and movies. They're bringing this now to apps. I think this is a great thing, and I hope in a way it encourages other developers to almost want to show that off as well. You know, it becomes a bit of a brag, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a positive. I am slightly worried about, if it just says button, button, button. Well, is that voiceover compatible? Well, not really.
No. And this is and again, how do we police this? This is going to be the next big thing. How is that going to be policed? What does it mean? Does it give us more of an opportunity to challenge developers? I suppose it does.
It's got to be trustworthy. We got to have confidence that what it says, when it says it's voiceover compatible, that it really truly is. Otherwise, it becomes useless. So we will wait and see. But overall, it's a positive.
It definitely is. I want to mention another feature which is coming, and that is an all-new magnifier for the Mac. Now, we know, of course, Magnifier's been on the iPhone for a long time. And when they started talking about this, I thought, I wonder if they're going to finally make this app a little bit easier to use on the iPhone, or at least maybe split up some of the functionalities that exist in the Magnifier app, because I feel it's become quite bloated. There's a lot of things in there that a blind person wouldn't necessarily go to a magnification app for.
Exactly.
I thought that was where they were going to go, but instead they've come up with this, which is kind of actually, as Apple often do, you kind of just hit you with something. You go, that's brilliant, which was this new magnifier for Mac. So Magnifier apparently has been in the iPhone and iPad since 2016. And of course, it gives you the option to zoom in, read text, detect objects as well. But this year it's coming to the Mac, and it's trying to make the physical world more accessible. Now, obviously, we're talking here about, I think, students especially who go to lectures, who want to follow what's going on the board, classroom, for kids in classrooms. The Magnifier app for Mac connects to a camera. Now, I guess it could be a webcam, but they did show off in one of the demonstrations, they showed off iPhone using continuity camera. And that means you can zoom in on the surroundings, such as a screen or whiteboard. It absolutely will work with other attached USB cameras, but you can, if you have continuity camera, you'll get the benefit of reading documents on your desk, not just afar, but also on your desk, using what's called desk view. So, this is basically having a scanner connected to your Mac, which is something, funnily enough, we've been talking about just recently.
Well, you definitely have. You haven't shut up about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were saying more, they were giving the example of a live video magnifier, a CCTV as well. So yeah, you think about if you're in a class or in a lecture and you use your iPhone to zoom in on the whiteboard. And, you could OCR, you could invert the colors, you could zoom in, you could digitize OCR, as I said, digitize the text there. It was very cool. And it's just one of those things you think, actually, that makes total sense. So, yeah, again, another real cool feature.
I mean, the cool thing here is, like you're saying, obviously you can adjust the contrast and all that, but it's not just on an image. So it will actually get the let's say it's a on-screen presentation or a whiteboard presentation, and you're watching it in a lecture theatre. You've got your MacBook sitting there, your continuity camera is pointed at the whiteboard. That is able to be taken onto the screen, and then you can adjust it. So let's say you're sitting at the corner, you can adjust it so you can see it properly. You can actually move it on the screen. You can also change it so that it actually becomes text only on screen, and then of course you can make that text size any way you want. Now, this is something which a lot of people who use magnification devices, and often quite expensive magnification devices, and this gets into a whole new conversation again about, specialist devices and what this will mean for that market. Because essentially, if you can buy a MacBook and you have a camera, whether it be a webcam or an iPhone camera, doing the same job, it's kind of like we're kind of getting back to that place again where, you're like, right, okay, can I just do it all on my Mac?
Yeah.
This is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, of course, there are lots of values to having a dedicated machine. But yeah, very, very interesting. And the other thing it comes in with, because there's a new feature as well called Accessibility Reader, which transforms text from the physical world into a custom legible format, and also on device documents as well. Magnifier for Mac will be integrated with that as well. Now, that means you can also not just have the text in a style you want, you can also play and listen to the text. Almost like almost like some kind of voice stream reader type thing. Or
Yes.
easy reader type thing. It's like that again, right? It's really
As ever with
interesting.
Apple announcements, I'm sure there's a few companies out there sort of worried today, but we'll get into that a bit more. Accessibility Reader was interesting as well, and it did give the example of people with reading difficulties like dyslexia. But very much like the immersive readers and things like that you get on browsers now, the ability to strip out any superfluous text, from say a PDF or something, change the font, change the colors, and change the size. Very interesting. Again, low vision people are going to love that.
Low vision, yes, but also having that play functionality as well, and having the option to choose a voice and listen to your text. It could be a text file. It could be all kinds of things. That's very, very interesting to see how that will work. Now, another area of interest, they talked about Braille, and they are going to include this all new experiences, they're calling it, called Braille Access, that turns iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple Vision Pro, interestingly, into a fully featured Braille note taker built and integrated into the Apple ecosystem. Now, this is
the Vision Pro. I missed that. Wow,
yeah, Vision Pro as well. Vision Pro. I mean, we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute. But okay, so for Braille Access, it will have a built-in app launcher, so you can easily open any app by typing with Braille screen input or a connected Braille device. With Braille Access, you can quickly take notes in Braille format and perform calculations using Nemeth Braille. That's the Braille code often used in classrooms for math and science. You can also use Braille-ready format, BRF files, directly from Braille Access, unlocking a wide range of books and files previously created on a Braille note-taking device. And an integrated form of live captions allows users to transcribe conversations in real time directly onto Braille displays as well. Very interesting. This is, I think, going to be a big headline feature out of iOS 19 for sure. And other platforms.
Well, I mean, since the update in iOS, was it 18 where they introduced the BSI commands where you could control, not just text entry using the Braille screen input, but also control the entire device. I know people have absolutely loved that, and this just takes it another step. I mean, again, note-taking, that's a very interesting move.
Some other things as well, live captioning arriving on Apple Watch. You were quite excited about this.
Yeah, I thought that was very cool. So for the live listen function, where you can put your iPhone, in front of someone, and it will amplify it through the AirPods, and you can hear what they're saying better if you've got hard of hearing or hearing difficulties. This also now will give you a live caption on your Apple Watch, so you don't have to be in front of the phone. You can be far away, and you can still read what someone is saying. Yeah, I think people are going to love that too.
Yeah. The one, though, that kind of got me, and this is the Apple Vision Pro getting a new accessibility feature. Now, I think when I had talked about this on the show, I think I've talked about it before, when I had tried out the Vision Pro, the one thing I kind of felt was missing was the ability to zoom into your environment. You can obviously see the real world through the Vision Pro, and you can use Zoom inside Vision Pro to navigate and move around the apps, move around the menus, all of that stuff. But one thing you couldn't do was zoom in the real world. So let's say you were wanting to look at something from afar. You kind of think, it'd be just so cool if I could just zoom into that in the way that, and again, we're going to talk about specialist devices, but other things like eSights and, other equivalent types of devices have been doing for a long time. Well, that's something that is coming into Apple Vision Pro. For those who are blind or low vision, Vision OS is going to expand vision accessibility features using the advanced camera system. With powerful updates to Zoom, users can magnify everything in view, including their surroundings, using the main camera. So, that is huge, frankly. That is a massive feature.
Now, I do need some more information on this. For example, can you adjust the contrast, the brightness, the saturation on the live video that you're looking at? That would be, even better. Then we really are trampling on other people's feet here.
Yeah.
I think this is great news. And if they're opening up those front-facing cameras, it opens it up to so much more as well. Other apps, maybe, I hope.
Yeah, they're saying that for accessibility developers, a new API will enable approved apps to access the main camera to provide live person-to-person assistance for visual interpretation in apps like Be My Eyes. giving users more way to understand their surroundings hands-free. I'm reading that directly from Apple. That is their words.
Oh, you answered my question. Okay, I missed that again. I did hear Be My Eyes being mentioned, though, which is always nice.
Well, yeah, it's always nice, but actually this is way more meaningful, right? Apple Vision Pro, the wearable headset, finally able to connect, potentially, because, I mean, they're saying like Be My Eyes. That does tell you where we're probably headed here. You know, it all feels very cloak and dagger, but the truth is, you know, it's probably going to go that way, and that's good. Very exciting, though, for things like Ira as well.
Yeah, more chance of them opening up than success Ira's had with Meta.
Seeing AI, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be very interesting, very, very interesting.
Suddenly,
and look,
it doesn't seem quite so expensive.
well, you know, there's lots of rumors flying around. Now, we don't know yet, right? But there's lots of rumors flying around about what may come out at WWDC this year. There's talk of potentially, maybe not at WWDC, we'll see. But there's certainly talk of a new, lower cost vision device, possibly called Vision Air or something like that, that may appear at WWDC or a bit later this year. If that comes out, and again, it depends on the price, but you know, this could get quite interesting quite quickly, especially with these new features coming in. I've got to say, very exciting times for the Vision OS platform, which, you know, felt maybe a little bit languishing for a lot of people. And certainly in its current form, way out of reach for most. But let's see what happens down the line. Now, also on Vision OS, live recognition is coming as well, which will use on-device machine learning to describe surroundings, find objects, read documents, and more. So it is going to get a lot more powerful, the Vision Pro, the wearable that gets extremely exciting, I think, for a lot of us in the future, but maybe not right now with the cost. But let's see what happens down the line.
Absolutely. I thought one of the highlights for me was the, I'm not sure why, I mean, just from a geeky point of view, it's not for my particular disability, was the personal voice. They mentioned that, you know, to clone your voice, if you're at risk of losing your voice sometime in the future, you can clone your voice and use it for, you know, the text-to-speech programs. So from 150 phrases, which is what we have to do currently to train the AI to clone our voices, it's gone down to just 10 phrases. And instead of leaving your phone overnight to process that and make it happen, it's just a couple of minutes. I mean, that's absolutely amazing.
Incredible, isn't it? It's just incredible. Yeah. You know, it's so exciting. And of course, it's all heading up to Global Accessibility Awareness Day this Thursday. There's a lot of news coming out. We'll bring you all. We are going to be speaking with Sarah Herlinger from Apple on the show. So we're going to get more detail on all of this. Lots of questions, especially around Vision Pro. I have. I mean, obviously, there's only so much they're going to tell us about, you know, future developments, but let's just stick to what we know. And we're going to get into that with Sarah a bit later this week, that conversation coming up on Double Tap. But another story, of course, that we must mention is Samsung, because they've announced a new super thin Galaxy S25 Edge smartphone. Yes, basically, they've managed to get ahead of the game. There's talk of iPhone 17 Air. These are all the rumors at the minute that there's going to be a really thin iPhone 17 coming out, and Samsung have jumped ahead, some are saying, and done this already. So in terms of, I mean, I can't quite understand the dimensions of all this stuff, but basically it's a 6.7-inch screen, but it is thinner. How much thinner, we shall see when we get hands-on, if we get hands-on. A titanium frame with Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2, which is, of course, hugely better than Ceramic 1, obviously. The processor, Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, which is kind of cool, 12 gig of RAM in it. 256 gig or 512 gig storage in there as well. A 200 megapixel wide-angle lens, 2x optical zoom, 12 megapixel ultra-wide. The battery is a 3,900 milliamp battery with 25 watt wired charging, and it will be running, of course, Android 15 with One UI 7 and tons of AI features and everything else that you would expect. Pricing, well, in Canada, you're going to be starting off around $1,678 for the 256 gig version. The pre-order includes a free upgrade to 512 gig for the price of 256 gig. So you can actually save a bit of money there. In the US, that price starts at $1,099 for the 256 gig, and both the 256 gig and 512 gig models are priced at $1,099. That doesn't feel right, but I guess it's because of that pre-order promotion at the moment. And available colors, I know you don't care, but I do. Icy blue, jet black, and silver.
Nobody cares. Cool. Okay, so your old Samsung S25 there,
Straight in the bin.
Stephen. Ultra, throw it away. You
Get
gonna get
rid.
the edge? No. No,
I like to live on the edge. I'm not sure if I want to live with the edge. We'll see. I will say, though, shipping commences from May 27th in Canada and May 30th in the US and UK, if you're interested. But yeah, that's a very cool device, the Samsung 25 Edge smartphone. You're listening to Double Tap.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Now, we had a chance to catch up with John Dyer from the Blind Android Users podcast and Carrie Morales from the Carry On Accessibility YouTube show and podcast to find out all about their thoughts on switching to Android. Let's talk about Android. Let's talk about where we're at with it because, John, there's been some cool updates. Of course, the big one last year was all about Gemini and integration with, getting image descriptions into TalkBack. Anything new that's been coming out? I mean, I know we're not too far away from a big Android update, or at least announcement of an Android update. First off, what's been sort of highlight for you over the last year in TalkBack that's new, that's exciting? And then we'll maybe talk a little bit about what's coming up and what you would like to see.
So I think you already hit the nail on the head. It's the Gemini descriptions. I mean, at this point, that's what sets TalkBack apart from, VoiceOver in one way. It's funny because I do love it. I use it. I don't use it as much as I thought I would, but when I do use it, it's a game changer.
Okay, in what way? So for someone who doesn't know what this is, this feature, just give us a quick rundown of how you use it and what it does.
Okay, so assuming you have a Android phone that is not a Samsung phone, with the exclusion of the S25 series, because right now Samsung's S25 series is the only Samsung phones that have this feature. Even their other phones that they've updated to One UI 7 don't get this feature. But so if you're using one of those phones or something that's not Samsung, you will have the ability to describe whatever's within the TalkBack focus with AI, basically. So it's similar to how you'd send a screenshot to Gemini or something similar. Be My Eyes, right? It just kind of takes a screenshot of what's in the focus, and you get a description back. So it's like basically anything that's unlabeled, or if you just want to describe a picture that's in focus, even if it has alt text, maybe you want a much better description of it. You just send it to TalkBack and it sends the description right back to you.
What's really great is that you don't have to share it with another app. You don't have to go through those steps. You can set it up as a gesture or through the TalkBack menu, and it's just honestly a lot faster. The one improvement that I am hoping to see, and I don't know if it will come or when it will come or if it will come, but I'd like to be able to ask follow-up questions. Right now, you can just get the AI description and that's it.
And that's something you can do through the Gemini app at the moment, right? You can't do it within TalkBack, but you could do it through the Gemini app. Of course, you can do that in the Be My Eyes app as well.
Yes, but you'd have to share it.
And you'd have to take a screenshot of the whole screen.
Yes.
And then you'd have to be very specific, like you'd have to say where the TalkBack focus is, describe this to me, or ask a question about that. So it's a lot more difficult doing it that way.
It's hard work, yeah. I mean, it's a great feature, right? And you can immediately see the use case of, I don't know, going through a WhatsApp, conversation, and there's pictures in there. You don't have to find the share and then hit the share again on the iPhone. You'd have to do this, and send it, recognize with Be My Eyes or whatever it may be. Just having it built into the screen reader is great. But I'm interested in the sort of unlabeled buttons and inaccessible elements part of this. You mentioned that earlier on, John.
Yeah, it will describe anything that you can get in focus. So some apps are so inaccessible that you can't even get things in focus, right? But assuming you can actually navigate the app. If things are just unlabeled or labeled incorrectly, you can get a description and it'll describe the control to you perfectly. I mean, it'll tell you the exact text that's on it or in it.
Perfect.
And, yeah.
Check out, buy now, pay now. Yeah, all those buttons that usually cause us trouble. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
I mean, this is the bit that interests me, I think, going forward, because we're seeing, and Gemini, I have to say, I mean, I know, Carrie, you've talked about Gemini a lot on your channel, and it is just really interesting. It's exciting to see where it's going. You know, I've been using Gemini a lot more since obviously having the S25, using Copilot on Windows a lot more. Basically anything except Apple Intelligence, because there doesn't seem to be many or much intelligence in Apple, and that's part of the problem. And I'm happy to say that, and I know Apple hate me for saying it, but I don't care, because until they fix it, I'm going to keep saying it. You know, at the end of the day, there are other options available, and they are good, and Gemini is a good choice. And what's really interesting is the way that now it's able to see the screen and help direct you to find something on the screen. We're certainly seeing that with Copilot Vision now on Windows as well, and that's being demonstrated. We know that Gemini can already do this through the browser. Do you think there's a point where the paths collide, Carrie, that the AI and the accessibility kind of collide in this way, and that potentially, you know, not just tell you where something is on the screen, maybe even take action for you?
That is what I am hoping. There are actually right now some AI assistants for Windows that can handle the keyboard and the mouse, and you can use it with a screen reader. And so I would love to see that translated over to the phone, whether it's iPhone with Apple Intelligence maybe, but with Gemini, and being able to interact, perform actions. Really, that slider does not work with TalkBack. That button, I'm double tapping, it's just not working. Can you just go ahead and activate it? Now that would be the next level, I think.
Why do you think there's this delay in getting there? Right? Because we've been talking about this for a while, and you're absolutely right, Carrie. We've had, sort of betas, I suppose we could say, or previews of programs for Windows that take actions, viewpoint, and I believe it's called guide. I know there's another one as well. Why is the delay in making this happen? Do you think that the main AI companies, Google and ChatGPT, OpenAI, do you think they're worried that it's just not reliable enough? I mean, I think we've all got over the initial wow factor of chatting to AI, and now we're so conscious of, it's not that trustworthy sometimes. And if you're giving it control of your computer or your iPhone or your smartphone, do you think that's what they're worried about? It's just not quite accurate enough?
I think that is a major factor. I was using both Gemini and Meta AI when I was out and about. And, it gets confused about windows and doors. It told me that the doors are right in front of me when they were not. No, not even on that side of the building, even though I looked for them.
That's right. To tell you to climb through a window, was it?
I guess so.
I'm sorry, officer. My AI told me to climb through this window.
And the thing is, it'll even it assumes you know more than it. So, like, if you ask it something like the other day, I said, "What cycle is my washing machine set to?" It goes, "Oh, it looks like it's set to the normal wash cycle." And I go, "Are you sure?" She goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's set to delicates." And I'm like, "I wasn't telling you. I wasn't telling you were wrong. I don't know. I'm just making sure you're sure." So it's like they're so quick to think you're correcting them and try something different, even if it's
if it's not right.
Well, it's funny.
However,
I was trying to go to a store the other day, and it was a Sunday, and I asked what time the store closed. Well, I actually asked what time the store opened, and it said 9 o'clock, and I thought, Sunday? What time does the store close? And it said 8 p.m., and I'm like, no, it doesn't. I said, you do know it's Sunday? Oh, yes, you're right. It closes at 6 and therefore opens later at 10. And I'm like, Could have told me that in the first instance. You don't even know what day it is. So, these are the kind of little things that come along. But, we know these are going to be ironed out. These issues are going to be ironed out. There's no denial.
Do we? We've been saying that for quite a while now. There's no definite here. This may need a total redesign of the data sets, right? I mean, this could be garbage in and garbage out.
Well, it doesn't know what day it is.
Well, yeah, no, that's just an example. That's one example amongst many, isn't it?
Something that I've noticed is sometimes
Yes, that's right. You're absolutely right, Shaun. End of story. Carry on, Carrie.
something that I've noticed is that sometimes it does try to overcorrect, but sometimes it will adamantly refuse to change its mind, even though you try to correct it and you try to coach it almost, even when you know the correct answer and you're like, that's still not the right answer. And it refuses to change what it thinks. And I think it's like a child right now. It's either too stubborn to really look at it again or too not confident to support its answers and stick to what it really thinks it is.
Hang on a minute. Not changing its mind despite facts in front of it. Being stubborn. That sounds like my entire family. This AI is taking over. It's real.
Stephen Scott AI. Yeah, sounds great. I think, look,
Apple's great. Did I say that?
I may be being a bit negative about this. I think, look, it's all fine and it can be incredibly useful, as we all know, as long as we come into it with the right expectations. And maybe we're all guilty of this.
But hang on. Let me just ask you this, though, to all of you. Is this the problem? Because I'm asking you guys about the accessibility benefits and all of that, and we've kind of, this whole conversation shifted over to the negatives. Do the negatives outweigh the benefits at this moment? Is that the problem for you guys? Is it that you just feel that you can't trust it, so therefore let's not rely on it?
You just have to know you can't trust it. Like, I'm not going to use this thing across the street, right? So, I mean, you just have to have your expectations in check. With any AI thing, even something that's not helping you with something visual. Like if you ask a question and it researches it on the internet and gives you the answer, you're not going to just trust it, right? You're going to want to double check any answer you get from any AI.
It's almost like a human, it gets things wrong.
I dare you. Yeah, but that was the point I was going to make, is that are we not guilty of overhyping it, giving people too much expectations of what it can do? Or are we just, like we're talking about, it's going to take control of our apps. It's going to be able to, and yeah, down the line it will do, but we don't know how long that's going to be. It could be next week. It could be 10 years. Who knows? But should we be more realistic? Should we stop overhyping it ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great tool if you know how to use it. You can't use it for everything. Like, for example, I long press the key to bring up Gemini, and then I just hit live, turn on the camera, and I'm pointing it at, like, for example, a can of soda, right? And it goes, oh, I see it, and it tells me what kind of soda it is. And then, that's very convenient, right? But if it's wrong and I drink something that's not that soda, it's not the end of the world. So, like, as long as you know what to use it for.
I was going to say, if it's a bottle of bleach, that could be a problem. These are the challenges we face. I mean, I suppose there is a real concern at the minute around trust anyway in AI more generally. And it's just fascinating to hear you guys kind of go that way with the conversation, right? Because I kind of look at it from the point of view of, I've got the Meta Ray-Bans, I'm going around the house, I'm picking up things, I'm finding out what things are. I'm going to shops more recently in the past couple of weeks even, and not finding that, like I can actually walk around a store and pick things up and say, what's this? And, if it, it's not going to get everything 100% right, for sure, but it's going to get the ballpark right. It's going to be getting closer to it. And for me, that's good enough at the moment. I'm quite happy with that. It's kind of given me a sense of independence again in a way that perhaps I never had before. Certainly more confidence to do things by myself.
It's really great because it's really about your daily life and how useful it is. I use Gemini and I use the live mode almost every day, basically. When I went to the library, I used that to read, what shelf is this? What book is this? Like, read all the books that you see. Something that would have taken seeing AI, it would have been very confused, but AI is able to parse and separate all the book titles, and maybe it has hallucinated some of them, but they all sounded great. I don't know. But even from identifying food or anything that you have at home, sometimes it struggles with directions a little, like deep frying or air frying or whatnot. It does get those little details like 380, 360 mixed up, and I don't quite trust it for those things. But I think identifying is usually pretty good. And it just makes things a lot easier than when you use just the OCR app sometimes.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I want to ask you guys, because look, we're at an interesting point here with what's going on politically in the world. Tariffs are obviously going to have a huge impact on lots of things, and Apple has kind of quietly said that the costs of their new iPhones will go up, and they are not attributing it to the tariffs. I think they learned from Amazon that was probably a bad idea. So they've decided not to do that, but they are probably going to increase the costs of their smartphones. And Apple seems to be one of the companies that is going to be hardest hit in this regard, to not exclusively, I mean, but certainly in the smartphone sector, they're going to be impacted hard by these tariffs. My question is, for people who are thinking of buying a new smartphone, whether they're Apple now or Android now, Android is going to start to look like a really interesting proposition, right? Because, John, let's be honest about it. You can get into the Android ecosystem at a much lower cost. And, again, we're talking here to blind people, right? You can buy smartphones that may not have all the bells and whistles, but you'll get a heck of a lot of bells and whistles in your phone.
Yeah, you'll get what you pay for. Like, it won't be as good of an experience as far as performance goes, but it will work. It has all the same features. Like, you can get a fully operational Android phone for like $200 if you want to, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's my point, right? So, it's an interesting time, because if Apple's prices do go up, and of course, yes, there are always ways to get into the Apple ecosystem as well. You could get the 16E, or you could, go down the refurbished road. There are other ways you can get involved, in that, if you want to buy into that ecosystem. But I think if people are out, I'm thinking right now of the people who may be considering an upgrade. Maybe they've got an iPhone 12 or an iPhone 13, and they're thinking maybe it's time to upgrade. And they look at the prices of the new iPhones and think, wow, there's no way. And then they're hearing all about the lack of Apple Intelligence at the moment. They might be looking to Android. Carrie, what's your thoughts on this? Because I think that we're about to see a bit of a shift, potentially, in the blind community.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I do disagree. I don't think, unless there are many more Gemini features that impact accessibility in a positive way, unless the price increases are very significant, it's still, I think those who are using an iPhone will still gravitate to it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Carrie here. So, I can't speak to the entire world, but how things work in the US, I don't know that tariffs are going to really affect most people, because they go through their carriers to get their phones. And now their carriers are going to be like, oh, by the way, I mean, obviously I'm just, guessing here, but they might be like, oh, remember that 36 month contract you're signing? Now it's a 48-month contract. Like, so they might not even notice any difference as far as the price increase from their day to day. They'll just be getting a new phone less often.
Yeah, possible. I think it's that killer feature that is the only thing that's going to tempt someone over. If there was something that only came to an Android phone through Gemini, that let's say like the ability to find a inaccessible element on an app and activate it, that would be the thing. That's the only thing. And it's the same the other way, it's everyone's comfortable in their own ecosystem, the whole iPhone versus Android. It's just, well, you know what? I know how to do things on here. Who wants to learn a new one? So it's very difficult to get any camp to swap over, but it's that killer feature. If Gemini came out tomorrow and said, hey, our Vision, our live AI feature, it's now proactive. So as you're walking down the street, it will tell you, hey, stop a minute. There's a car about 3 foot in front of you. I'm switching over tomorrow. It's that's what we're waiting for. I think you're both right. People are entrenched in what they're using now, and it's really difficult to get them out of it.
You know what I have seen, Shaun? Are iPhone users buying Androids, but not switching over. So they have both of them. Some of them put the Android in a drawer, and others use both.
Who do you mean?
So that's been really interesting for me. I've seen that.
No, who knows what she's talking about?
He got his out of the drawer just for this interview, in case somebody tried to accuse him of it.
That's what I do. I've got a Pixel, I think it's a 5A, actually, on my bedside cabinet. I've got a Samsung Galaxy S21 as well. And yeah, I pick them up now and again and use them, but I always go back to my iPhone as the daily driver, just because it's so familiar, so comfortable to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm the opposite because like I have an iPhone. I have an SE, the 3rd gen SE, whatever the most recent one was, and I use it when I need to use it. Like I'll give you one example. Like the YouTube Studio app wouldn't let me do a specific thing on Android, so I had to like do that on my iPhone. And it's like just every once in a while, there's one thing that the other one can do better, and you go to it for that. But you're going to stick with what you are used to using.
And I'm the same as John. I have a iPhone 16 Pro Max, and there are some iPhone specific apps that I like, and so I use those. Or if I'm trying to use iMessage, or what's the thing called with the doohickey where you can call people on other iPhones, that thing, FaceTime. There you go.
Doohickey.
The thing with the doohickey. Stop blinding us with science there, Carrie.
Yeah, so if I need to use that, I will go onto the iPhone. But there will have to be major changes for me to fully switch over.
Okay, yeah. Let me ask you another question then. Okay, on this very point about switching. And Carrie, I want to ask you this first because you disagree with me on my premise that I think a lot, maybe not a lot, but I think there are blind people who might be considering a switch because of cost, if nothing else. It may be like, you know what, if there's ever a time to make the leap to Android, this is it, right? You disagree with that. Okay, that's fine. But okay, let me ask you this then. What about Apple Intelligence? Do you think it actually matters to people? Do you think it's just the nerds like us that get geeky about it, that get excited about it? Actually, most people just don't care. They just want to do the basics on their phone. Is that what's holding them? They don't actually mind what these new features are because, they don't really seek them out?
I think some people just don't even know what AI can do, what to ask it, what to do with it. And they hear it all over the news. And I've met quite a few people who are like, yeah, I know about it, but they just don't use it. They don't think it's all that important. They have tools that they already use that work for them, that are probably more accurate, maybe a little more cumbersome, but it's what they're used to. And until they hear otherwise and it's more widely adopted and until it's more reliable, I don't see it changing.
Yeah. And then there's the people on the complete other end of the spectrum that are like, they won't have nothing to do with AI. Like my parents, right? They're like, I don't want AI on my phone. When I told them they need to get a new iPhone because they're no longer going to be getting updates, they're like, wait a minute. You mean I don't have to update my phone now? That's great.
Yeah. And I have to say, that's probably more the regular attitude out there, isn't it? The geeks like us that get really excited about the features.
We are the minority.
Yeah,
sure.
we are. Yeah. We are the minority.
So true.
That's
Every time I pick up Sarah's phone, it drives me crazy. There's about 192 updates.
My wife's the same.
Update that? No, I don't want to break it. It works. Why would I update it? It's like, well, yeah, I can't argue with that, but still, it's annoying me.
Well, I mean, I've shown my wife a few of the different features, and she uses them for a while, but then she just goes back to Facebook because that's what she likes to do. She likes to message her friends. She likes to use WhatsApp. She likes to use Facebook, and that's as far as she wants to go. And I think that's the bit that sometimes we forget when we talk about these things. It's like, whoa, everyone wants. Well, I certainly do sometimes. I think, well, why doesn't everyone want these features? But actually, the amount of people who still don't probably use ChatGPT is huge compared to the number of people who do use it, right?
Yeah, but on the flip side of that is when you show someone something, oh, do you know that can help you out with this? AI, just ask AI. Wow, that's amazing. So it's not until you show someone what they're actually, what it can do and how it can affect them specifically that they're interested.
I've got to say, I think that it is really going to take off for people when it gets into Lady A. I think that's when you can just talk to it, like, people have been talking to that device for so long, that is when you're going to get the buy-in from the people who are not interested on their smartphones because they don't see the value of it or they don't understand the value of it. And that's when Lady A Plus finally makes its way on.
I think it's really about the actions. What can AI actually do? That's when there will be buy-in.
Yeah, and it's not all accessibility related. For example, one of my favorite things I can do with Gemini is, when I edit the podcast, I put chapter markers in it in Reaper, and I can export those chapter markers into a text file, but the format is all wrong. It's not what YouTube wants. So I can just attach this file to a Gemini prompt, and I have a prompt that says format these chapters like this and give an example. And then it just spits out the entire list perfectly formatted, and I just copy it and paste it in my YouTube description. It's like that type of thing is like mind blowing. Like, this is why I love Gemini. Yeah, it's not only the accessibility stuff.
We don't talk about chapter markers around here.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Just move on. Just forget about that. That's blame someone else.
Webmaster, you don't have Gemini helping you.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, yeah, I'm not even going to get into that conversation.
No, leave it.
I don't know where to start.
It's so true, though. It's so true. I've used it to format text before. And it's just something that's just time saving, right? But once you use it, and maybe you got to spend a bit of time, tailoring and tinkering with the prompt to get it exactly right. But once you do it, once you get that prompt sorted out, you do that every time, and it saves you so much time.
It does, and it's the tedious stuff that is like having to edit that text file to get it in the format I want. It's just like constantly manipulating the keyboard for like 20 minutes straight. It's like you don't have to do this anymore.
Can I go back to the Android and people maybe wanting to switch over? Is there an entry level? Let's put it that way. Let's not say cheap, because that's bad apparently. But I want a cheap Android phone. Is there an entry level Android phone that either of you would recommend that is still has enough performance that makes using a screen reader actually okay, and maybe not enjoyable, but actually usable?
I would recommend the Pixel. I don't know if you consider this entry level, but the Pixel A series, because that starts at 500, and it has the same exact processor as what you'd get in any of the Pixel flagships, which doesn't perform as well as something using a Snapdragon, but it's definitely good enough. I think that's probably the best like $500 phone you could get as far as TalkBack performance, at least in the US.
Carrie?
I agree with John. I've only tried really some Samsung and Pixel, and OnePlus one time, which John seems to like it, but I'm much of a
So that reminds me. So OnePlus has a $500 phone, the 13T, is it T? No, R. The 13R, and it's got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in it. So that would actually perform better, even better than the Pixel. So that's another option.
What I want to try, and I don't think either of us have tried, is the Nothing phone. That would be an interesting one.
That's more budget-minded.
That's what I like, budget-minded. Well done. Yeah,
got Shaun covered.
I was looking for I've never heard of that brand smartphone. I like, what was it back in the day? Was it called Sly Fox, or am I thinking of some DVD?
Oh, Wiley Fox. Wiley
Fox was the one that everyone recommended back in the day. It was like 150 whatever, wherever you are. And it was the phone to go for. Is there nothing like that at the minute? We were talking $200.
You got to be careful, because there are those options, but the trap a lot of people fall for is like you'll get it, but TalkBack, it doesn't run well on lower end hardware. It's a completely different experience. Now, I'll say even if you buy a flagship phone, it's not gonna feel as responsive as what you're used to with VoiceOver. That's just the sad truth. Like, even if you buy the S25 Ultra, it's snappy enough to use, and if you're using that every day, you're not gonna be like, man, this is slow. But as soon as you pick up your iPhone and start using it again, you're like, okay, now this is how it's supposed to work. Like, it's just, even with the best processors, it's not as snappy. So when you start going to those really low range phones, like, it's going to feel even worse.
So you're saying it just doesn't exist? It's a false investment, basically. You're just not going to have any.
You're not going to want to use it as your phone every day, probably. If you're just curious and you want to see what Android has to offer, and you're planning on getting a different phone later, that might be a reason to get one of these phones. And they're probably perfectly fine for people that don't use TalkBack, right? TalkBack is the problem here. It's just so resource intensive. It just slows down on those devices.
Can I've got to ask about this because this interests me, and I think it's fascinating that you say that. It's kind of why I said at the top, you're very honest in your critique of TalkBack and Android, or Android TalkBack, I should say, specifically that screen reader, because you do tend to say the thing that a lot of Android people hate me saying, which is it just doesn't feel as snappy. It doesn't feel like, I sometimes feel like I'm swiping, nothing's happening, or it's taking a bit longer to respond. Why is that? And, I often get from, the fanboys of Android, well, you're just not used to it, and it's different to iPhone, and that's the way it is, get over it. What you're saying is actually there's maybe fundamentally something not quite right here, which kind of lends to Carrie and I's experience of the watch, right? Because we've experienced this, Carrie, the Pixel watch with that horrible voice and the horrible TalkBack on there, right? I mean, so clearly, well, I say clearly, I guess it's more of a question. Is it an issue with TalkBack that perhaps it just needs tuning up?
It does need tuning up. I mean, I could tell you that because we have a lot of people switching to Android in our community, and their biggest complaints are like, why does double tapping not always work? And it's like, it's just not as forgiving. Like, you have to double tap perfectly. I think like on an iPhone, maybe like say your second tap maybe it slid a couple pixels or something, right? iPhone's smart enough to know you meant to double tap, right? Whereas TalkBack it just wants you to do it a very specific way. When you swipe, you have to swipe a certain length that's longer than what an iPhone requires. So yeah, it is true that you can get used to it, but you have to be more intentional about how you do these gestures on Android.
I agree with John. There really is no question about responsiveness. iPhones and VoiceOver is much more responsive than TalkBack. And even though I love Android, that is not contestable. I mean, you can try to say that, but it's just not true. One thing that for me is really important, though, is that I like Android. I like the experience on Android. I not the biggest fan of iOS, and I actually like VoiceOver. VoiceOver is generally good, and I wish I could have VoiceOver on my Android. That would be kind of really neat to have. But I choose Android because of the operating system, not because of the screen reader.
Kind of takes us back to the start, doesn't it? That there's no perfect solution. There's no perfect platform out there. It's a combination.
But just to be clear though, Carrie, from your perspective, are you talking from low vision perspective with Android? Is that why you prefer it from a low vision perspective?
That's partially true. I like the magnification. It's more basic, but it's easier. And I like the font as well. But also, it's not even about accessibility for me in a lot of ways. It's about Android itself, how it's set up, how customizable things are. Maybe TalkBack isn't as customizable as VoiceOver, but Android itself is. And that's what I really like.
That's interesting. Yeah. I think it's important sometimes to make that distinction because I agree 100%. When I could see better, I was using... I would have been an Android guy. I don't even know why I wasn't an Android guy, to be honest.
Hang on. Yeah, but that was the thing that was always said back then, was that Android is great for low vision, not so great if you use a screen reader. Are you saying that's still the case?
I don't, because there are some diehard iPhone users who only use Zoom and love it. It's what you're familiar with, what's more comfortable for you. It really depends on what kind of features you need. Some people love the Zoom controller on the iPhone, and some people, like me, I use it and I kind of like it, but I always misplace it, or it's always blocking something. And I'm like, where is the Zoom control? I cannot find it. I don't know where it went. And sometimes it disappears on you, and I'm just like, really? And then VoiceOver and Zoom don't always play nicely with each other. The focus, I find, just gets stuck on the Zoom controller a lot of the time, and that can be really frustrating. But it's really each to their own, and whatever works for you.
What if at Google I/O this year Google announces glasses. Does that change the game?
I think it depends on the glasses. We can throw around the P word, potential, all day long, but until we can see what it actually does, who knows?
I don't think any announcement changes anything, especially after what Apple did with Apple Intelligence. Like nobody's going to trust anything until they have it in their hands and they can use it.
Even after Meta Ray-Ban?
If it's glasses Google. With no visual interface, but I don't see Google doing that.
Well, hang on. If we say they bring out the Google Glass, right? If it's got a display or not, whatever. Let's say the same price as Ray-Bans. It's not going to happen. But let's say it is. It's got AI built in, Gemini with live vision AI built in, but it needs an Android smartphone to use it. Do you think we're going to be switching across? I'll put that to you, Stephen.
Well, again, it all depends on what Carrie and John say when it comes out, right? I mean, if they try it and they're absolutely falling in love with it and it can do cool stuff. I mean, look, again, it's going to be a competitor to Meta Ray-Ban. That's really what's going on here. Google are trying to get ahead of the game. That's why there's rumors of glasses being announced at Google I/O this year, because if there's any competitor that's going to make it to market in time before Meta Connect, it's going to be Google. Apple are not ready.
If they come out with glasses running Google Gemini, they win. The Meta Ray-Bans can't compete. Simple as that. And
I will say, I don't know. It'd be unlikely, I think, that Google would make it so that you could only use it on an Android phone. That's an Apple move. That's not a Google move.
I agree.
So, I think that it could potentially come out only on Android first.
Yeah. Maybe on
do
Pixel
see that
or
happening.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I'm not sure, honestly. Can you use an Android watch with an iPhone?
Yes.
Can you use a Pixel watch? Okay. Yeah,
but
if you can use a Pixel watch with an iPhone,
you lose some features. You do lose some stuff. But
then you would be. It's probably going to be the same situation. Like you could technically use it, but you might not be able to use it all the features, or you might not get the exact same experience. Something like that.
Interesting times, that's for sure. Guys, it's been great talking to you both. Thank you so much for coming on. And, thanks for sharing your thoughts. Now, before I go, I have to do the thing that I should have done at the start, but I am terrible at my job. John, you're, of course, part of the Blind Android Users podcast. Tell people where people can find that podcast. I believe it might be on the internet.
Yeah, it is. blindandroidusers.com. And you should also check out accessibleandroid.com. I write articles on there from time to time as well.
With or without the use of AI?
Without.
Oh.
Do we believe that? Okay.
I believe John. Don't believe me, I'll tell you. Carrie, of course, Carrie on Accessibility, available across the web, right?
Yes, absolutely, on YouTube. And you can also go to carrieonaccessibility.com.
I like mentioning the shows at the end. Some people like to do it at the start. I like to mention it at the end because then people can go off and find you right away. Because they've obviously heard enough.
They're sick of us by
then. They're sick of us by
listening.
Then. Of course they're still listening. What are you talking about? Of course they're still listening. Where else would they go? We've locked them in. Guys, as always, great to catch up and chat, and come back soon, both of you. John Dyer, Carrie Morales, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So much.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, John.
Yeah. What a great conversation. And honestly, we could talk so much more with those guys, and we'll get them back on very soon. That is it for today, though. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be catching up with your feedback tomorrow. So catch you then. Thanks, Shaun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.